welcome to meeting number 14 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Agriculture and Agri-Food. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the motion adopted by the committee on October 24, 2020, the committee is resuming its study on processing capacity. Today's meeting is also taking place in the new webinar format. Webinars are for public committee meetings and are available only to members, their staff, and witnesses. Members may have remarked that the entry to the meeting was much quicker and that they immediately entered as an active participant. All functionalities for active participant remains the same. Staff will be non-active participant only and can therefore only view the meeting in the gallery view. I would like to take this opportunity to remind all participants that this meeting, that screenshot or taking photos of your screen is not permitted. Pour garantir le bon déroulement de la réunion, j'aimerais vous...
Meeting runs well. I would like to explain some rules. MPs and witnesses can speak in the official language of their choice. Interpretation services are available for this meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen between the floor, English, and French. And with the latest version of Zoom, you can now speak in the language of your choice without having to select the language channel that corresponds to it. You would also notice that the raise a hand function in the platform is more readily accessible at the bottom of the toolbar if you wish to speak or draw the chair's attention. If this function doesn't work, I propose that MPs and witnesses should light their cameras and physically raise their hands. The committee clerk will keep a list of MPs and witnesses that wish to speak. You can speak in the official language of your choice. Interpretation services are available throughout the meeting. At the bottom of your screen, you can choose between French and English. Those that are here in person should act as they normally do if all members of the committee were meeting in a committee room. Remember the directives from the internal management on mask use and health protocols. Before speaking, wait for me to give you the floor. If you're here by video conference, simply click the mic to get off mute mode. And the microphone for those that are in the room will be controlled by the deliberations and verification officers. When you are not speaking, please put your microphone on mute.
Interpretation difficulties during Richard Davies' testimony, which elicited a reaction and comments from members, and justifiably so. As there was another place available for witness testimonies on February 16th, 2021, Mr. Davies will be invited to appear again in front of the committee on that day. Committee members will be given the opportunity to question Mr. Davies at that time. So I would like now to welcome our witnesses. And today we have from Apple Valley Foods, Jeff Sarfield, owner and executive director. Welcome, Mr. Sarfield, to our committee. And also the Capel Beef, Jason Aitken, chief executive officer. And with that, we shall start with opening statements, and we'll start with Mr. Sarfield from Apple Valley Food, 7.5 minutes. You have the floor, Mr. Sarfield. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the invitation. So I'm Jeff Sarsfield, president of Apple Valley. We're located in Kentville, Nova Scotia. We started the business back in 2000. We're a frozen fruit pie supplier, shipping all across Canada and the US. We mostly concentrate on private label customers. So in the retail, the food service business, 60% of our sales currently are in Canada and 40% in the US. Last year, we actually grown substantially more in Canada than we did in the US. We're up to about 400 people now operating in 2 production plants, both located in the same industrial park here in Kentville. We did a major expansion back in 2014, 2015, where we tripled our capacity at the time for both Canadian sales and export. So that the last plant that we put together, we would be about 80% automated in that plant. And then due to overall growth that we had since then, we actually upgraded our original plant a fair bit, which we originally planned on shutting that facility down or changing it to a totally different product line. So that was actually provided lots of additional sales growth during the last 5 years. So currently, this past year, we ran both plants full out. Our major constraint, however, for capacity-wise, was labor. We had 4 production lines, and there was 1 complete line that we were not able to staff due to basically with the COVID. We've seen a major decline in applications for new employees. So we were fortunate we had applications for foreign workers in place, and by the end of the year, we've seen our first foreign workers come into our facility. We originally brought in 9 back in late December, and just last week we had another 11 foreign workers come in. So we are able to start increasing our 4th production line, which will give us some further growth for this year. So ending last year, we were well in excess of 100 million in sales. Some of our main attributes for our growth was the fact that we do have concentrate on providing top quality home style products, where we actually are one of the very few North American producers that actually grow, process, and put together the pies, the particular apple pies from scratch. So we buy, we grow some of our own apples. We buy direct from farmers, local farmers, and we actually peel, core, slice them in our bakery and put them directly into the pies, which kind of gives us a unique home style product. So that's been a big secret of our growth, and we've also have had good local staff that are able to train for some of the technologies that we do put into our process here at the 2 facilities. So going forward, we still have lots of opportunities to continually our automation to help become more efficient and competitive in our marketplace. And one other thing that from day one, FCC and ACOA and the province had helped us out on it when we initially started the business, and was quite instrumental in us being able to start at the level that we did. And we've done numerous expansions over the year, and FCC and ACOA has always been there, and that's been a big part why we've are still around and why we continue to grow. So I guess just want to let the committee know that how important those 2 programs, along with the Agri-Innovate Fund, was also in there as well. But definitely it's really helped us expand when we need it to. So I guess I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Sarsfield. And we'll go next to Capel Beef. Jason Aiken, you have 7.5 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. Aiken.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason Aiken, and I'm the president of Northern Natural Processing. I'm here to directly address the goal that the Barton Report is trying to achieve, specifically to increase production capacity to meet an export objective of $75 billion in 2025. So Northern Natural Processing owns the only CFIA federal licensed beef slaughter facilities in Saskatchewan, and we do business under the brand name Capel Beef. We're independent and to date have focused on delivering high quality value-added beef products. We own 2 CFIA federal licensed facilities, both outside of Regina. The cattle harvest facility, establishment 659, is approximately 33,000 square feet and is in Neudorf. And the beef value-added further processing facility, establishment 519, is approximately 22,000 square feet and is in Wolseley. Recently, we obtained export licenses for the US, South Korea, and Japan. Saskatchewan accounts for more than 40% of arable land in Canada, yet 85% of the cattle born in Saskatchewan leave on trucks, half of them going south to the US. Why can't we keep the cattle in Canada and process them locally? Canada is currently a net importer of beef, so we're here to change this. It's about food security and value creation at home for the benefit of Canadian producers and families in our local communities. Our mission is to be a net exporter of high quality value added beef products and not just an exporter of live cattle. So let me break down the remainder of my time into two segments: the barriers that hold us back as a beef processor and the opportunities ahead. Three main barriers: capital funding, critical mass, market power. So on capital funding, the capital expenditure required to be competitive in beef processing is significant. The strength of the two main incumbents, both foreign players that control 90% of the market, are well acknowledged. Cargill has 14 billionaires as family members. JBS's largest shareholder is 25% owned by the Brazilian government. Capitalization for smaller processors is a critical issue. We've privately raised over $40 million from scratch from investors over the last decade since I founded the business. And this represents a 10-to-1 ratio versus any government funding that we have received. If Canada wants made in Canada beef, true self-sufficiency, and to avoid the supply and procurement issues being witnessed currently with PPE and vaccines, I'd submit to all parties that all parties would mutually benefit from greater stimulus participation and from the Government of Canada. So on the topic of critical mass, the operating expenditure required to be competitive in beef processing is significant. By that I mean funding for the working capital requirements for essential inputs like cattle, labor, packaging, utilities. Let me use a simple analogy. Think of it as a 747 airplane. Does it economically make sense to run it if you only have 5 people aboard? There must be enough cattle throughput to cover fixed costs. We've succeeded in selling over 5 million pounds of beef across the country to customers like Metro, Longo's, Costco, Save on Foods, A&W, to name a few, but it's still not enough to realize break-even plant capacity. This is where international markets are critical. Market power. The beef industry, as you know, is incredibly concentrated, so much so that 4 players control 80% of the US market, where they've recently been antitrust probes led by the Department of Justice. In Canada, 2 main players, 90% of the market. Cargill and JBS can sell steaks and ground beef as loss leaders because of their global reach. Think of it like a Sony PlayStation or Xbox that embeds their platform with entrenched consumers. They make all their profit with scalability on software and tie-in products. As any parent with teenage kids knows, they get you hooked. So the best way to make money in the beef processing industry is to consider steaks almost as a byproduct of what you do. The Better Beef Slaughter Plant in Guelph, Ontario, set an important precedent by building a variety and offal capture plant with strong distribution into Japan. Their success resulted in a high-valued acquisition by Cargill at a 12 times EBITDA multiple. Don't let anyone tell you that beef processors can't make money for their stakeholders. So let's bring this back to the bigger opportunity and the reason why we're here. The Barton Report, $75 billion in exports by 2025. And this gets very personal for me. I've spent 15 years living outside of Canada, 7 years in Japan, 7.5 in the US. I speak Japanese. I've done 1,500 company visits on site in Japan, Korea, China. If there's one thing I'm sure about, it's rising per capita protein consumption in those regions. It's an unstoppable long-term trend. We have an amazing export opportunity. Asia Pacific wants to do business with Canada, but they require stability and guaranteed supply. The only way to guarantee this is develop the hard assets and truly invest in the necessary infrastructure. So this brings us to 2 points to leave you with: the path forward, access to funds, and greater flexibility. Canada's done a good job of providing funds and initiatives to lay the foundation for export opportunities. For example, the recent CPP-TP treaty, the recent announcement of a $4 billion irrigation project in Saskatchewan. However, broader access to funds remains severely limited. Until application and performance criteria is revised, Canada is not encouraging the innovation and participation required to achieve the Barton Report export objectives. So finally, here are the benefits that a true commitment to funding would have. We'd increase the number of long-term skilled jobs and high-value jobs. It's worth noting that Indigenous people make over 50% of our workforce in the Qu'Appelle Valley. We'd create and realize significantly higher prices for local Canadian agricultural inputs. We'll provide reliable, guaranteed, high-quality supply of beef for Canadians, promote integrity and brand value for the region, promote Canadian interests, both domestic and abroad, and finally create a successful template for business development of healthy, value-added products, which can be replicated in other provinces around the country. So with that, I'd like to open it to questions. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aitken. And now we will start our question round. And to start us off with 6 minutes, Ms. Rood. Go ahead, Ms. Rood, for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Mr. Aitken, for agreeing to appear here today. And thank you for reminding us that the Barton Report has set an export objective of 75 million by 2025 and for Canada's agri-foods. And I see that the agri-food table increased the objectives to 85 billion in agriculture and agri-food exports by 2025. In the last meeting, we heard how the pandemic has affected processing capacity. And I want to commend you for seeing an opportunity in your field and for privately raising $40 million in capital to get your business up and running. So I'm just wondering if you could comment on how your processing capacity has been affected by the pandemic and how the federal government's pandemic funding or other funding has helped you or not helped you in any way.
Thank you, Leanne. So, I mean, essentially cutting to the chase, the issue is we're not capitalized effectively. And I outlined to you kind of the critical mass and capital funding issues that we face with two extremely strong incumbents in the area. So what I think is the issue is during the pandemic, when there was a dire need suddenly for beef, we would receive calls from customers and they would say, we need beef now, but, you know, payment from the customer is going to be in 30 days, and yet the cattle rancher will need to be paid right away. So that gap, that working capital gap, is a huge issue. So related to government programs and how it can help, really there's two things at stake here. There's capital expenditure and there's operating expenditure. On the capital expenditure, the Emergency Processing Fund is a great start because it can focus on addressing the capacity constraints that you have in your facility. As it relates to the operating expenditure, the regional development funds can be useful, such as the Western Economic Diversification Program, specifically the Business Scalability Program, because it allows you to scale up the working capital that you need. The challenge is being just that because you know, I guess it's established in tech companies that years of no profits, but the scalability of going into export markets is enormous, but it has to be nurtured over time. So the traditional financial scoring system may not reflect some of the strategic realities of starting a new plant. These things have to be nurtured. It's the expectation that you're going to have setbacks, the expectation that things will go wrong. And I think there has to be patience with that process. That's why I kind of like when we look at the strategic objectives of Canada, look, I'm not saying we can replace Cargill or JBS. That's like the power system. But if you were a hospital, wouldn't you want to have a backup power generator in case? And the pandemic has really underscored that vulnerability. The lesson here is that nobody's infallible and you can't put all your eggs in one basket.
Thank you for that. You mentioned that there's barriers that hold you back as a beef processor, and you're being licensed by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, or the CFIA. We've heard from stakeholders from across the food processing industry, and in fact, in our last meeting, that the CFIA is inconsistent. That is, the CFIA inspectors are inconsistent with their inspections and application of the regulations. Have you found this to be the case? And if so, does this inconsistency represent a barrier that holds you back?
I think any there are always challenges. We went through many challenges, Leanne, in 2014 and 2015 on the regulatory side. We went through a recall, we went through a license suspension, many things that came with taking a provincially licensed plant to federal status, which we achieved. Since then, we've done a Costco proprietary audit, Whole Foods Animal Welfare Addendum, BRC certification, all of these things that make us robust so that we can compete not just in Canada, but internationally. So, you know, as far as inconsistency, we did go through that, and it's cost us lots of money, but it made us, I like to look at it and think we raised our game, because customers at the end of the day can know that it's kind of like a frosh in university, went through the trials and tribulations to become better. And now I feel very proud of what is one of the most modern facilities in Canada with a track record for providing incredible beef.
You also mentioned the need for enough cattle coming through your processing facilities to cover your fixed costs, that you've not yet processed enough cattle to break even. So are you having trouble getting cattle producers to send the stock to your facilities? And if so, what do you see as a solution?
I don't think the issue per se is supply, because, as I said, half of farmland almost in Canada is in Saskatchewan. There's plenty of cattle around us, but I think the issue is for the scale. For example, if we went into international markets, it's the global reach. You need to be able to meet minimum container loads. So, and all of that has to be funded up front with a massive capital expense. So it's the capital issue versus the supply that I think is the biggest barrier. And that's where you run into, like, you know, the issues of the cattle is collateralized by their bankers. So the bankers effectively control those cattle, and they need to be paid in 48 hours, 7 days at the most. That's really difficult when your customer isn't paying you for 30 days in some cases.
Chair, how much time do we have left?
You have 14 seconds, Leanne.
I'll give that up. I'll give that up. Thank you so much, Mr. Aiken. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Leanne. Thank you, Mr. Aiken. And now to Mr. Blois for 6 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. Blois.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to thank both of our witnesses for their testimony here today. I'm going to start with Mr. Sarsfield. Jeff, it's great to see you. Obviously, your business plays an important role in the Annapolis Valley. I want to get to the point on labor, because we've had this conversation offline. We've heard it before on this committee. Is looking at increasing the 10% amount that is allowed for your workforce in temporary farm workers a good start? And you also mentioned about the seasonal agriculture worker program and allowing for transfers not only between producer, but perhaps producer to processor. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, both on the agricultural side, so on our apple production side, it's totally crucial for them to have the harvest labor, and also labor earlier in the year for pruning and so on. So there's definitely advantages the longer that they can bring up the temporary workers, the cheaper it would become for their housing and so on. But here at the plant, the 10% allocation has definitely made a huge difference for us to get more lines running in our plant, and just because right now they're just not available. And if we do hire locals, it's typically, like a lot of areas, we hire 10, and after 2 weeks we have 1 or 2 left. So
there's certainly challenges, and we mentioned that existed before the pandemic. Obviously, as we've heard from some small business owners, the CERB, although a great program, has created challenges in that space. I don't think that's any secret out there. I want to talk to you, though, but specifically, as I understand it, looking at the seasonal agriculture worker program and allowing transfers potentially from producer to processor in an area could be something we should perhaps be looking at. Is that fair?
Yes, it would. Particularly last fall, it would have helped us pick up a few more millions of sales that we could have transferred some from some farming operations into our plant for the November, December timeframe, that we would have picked up sales that we would have shorted due to lack of labor.
Certainly, you mentioned Farm Credit Canada and the important role that ACOA has played, and you mentioned the major expansion back in 2014 that tripled your production capacity. Is it fair to say that one of the recommendations that should be coming out of this committee is looking at the important role that Farm Credit Canada can play, along with the regional development agencies, to position processors to make these innovations? Is that fair?
That is. I guess I just wanted to point out the fact that our success for having capital available to us in rural Nova Scotia definitely they met those requirements, and continually as we go forward, we'd like to see that that was still available to us.
I've had the chance to be in your two facilities. They're impressive. It's amazing to see the amount of pies going through your facility, but I know you're looking to the future as well. You're looking at the price on pollution, the fact that the government's moving on a sustainability goal and agenda. What can the government do to help ensure your business is remaining sustainable? Is there ways that we can partner with you to try to help ensure that the investments that are needed in your facility can keep pace with things like the price on pollution and others?
Well, I guess it's that continued support for us for that funding that does come available. I know we received some through the Agri-Food Fund for different automated projects that we've done. It's just that continual support and new programs to help us keep our plant modern and keep investing for automation, and along with the combination of that and the foreign workers, because we are basically, our plan is full now. We're in that point where we're trying to decide, do we increase our overall capacity, but it's going to be a major, it could be $25-30 million, and it's definitely hard to get price increases with our customer base. So right now we're enjoying the fact that at least we have a full plant, and both of our plants run 6 days a week, 24 hours a day. So when we increase more capacity and we're looking for sales, there's always that setback. So we're in that time period where we're deciding whether we're going to move ahead with more expansion or just keep modernize what we have.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is then it's important that we continue to have those measures in place that you've already been able to capitalize in the days ahead. Certainly you talked about, I know offline we've talked about some of the impacts in dealing with the major retailers because you market through them. So certainly we've heard a lot about the code of conduct. I think you referenced it, but I want to ask one quick question of Mr. Akin. Mr. Akin, you talked about kind of broadening government programs writ large, and I really appreciated your testimony today. What can government do when you say broaden? What exactly does that mean? Just kind of less program specific and a little bit more just general ability to innovate and move you forward?
Well, for example, the Emergency Processing Fund has two categories. There's an emergency category and a strategic category. To my knowledge, not a single strategic investment has been approved in that fund. So I think that, and I understand that there might be a top up, but it needs to be funded, and strategic projects need to be approved. Otherwise, we're not going to get to that Barton Report objective of international exports.
That was certainly an emergency program, right? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Blois. Thank you, Mr. Akin. And maintenant, Monsieur Perron.
So now, Mr. Perron, for 6 minutes. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to thank the witnesses for being with us today. Mr. Akin, let's start with you. You spoke about transformation of processing without necessarily replacing them, but completing them, stabilizing food processing in the country. I think that we have had these COVID cases in some processing centers. Now, concretely, do you have one or two clear recommendations for the government? What are specific measures that could be taken to assist you to do more processing and facing the appearance of new stakeholders in that sector?
Fabrication is your area with the greatest, you have people density and risk of the contagion. So as it relates to us, our bottleneck is in fabrication, and having a combination of better layout and automation would greatly improve both the productive capacity and the safety of workers in that sector. An example might be a carny boning system on a fab floor. An example would be a customized cut for Asian markets. There are lots of areas where we can add value.
Okay, donc dans le fond.
So basically, the government could assist by giving a tax credit for automation, some such idea. Is this where your most pressing needs are?
A tax credit for automation would be good, but it's the upfront capital to actually get that moving on site. I would say that an endorsement, a guarantee, if you're going, for example, to a Japanese customer, they need to know that they have guaranteed supply. Okay, High Life in Nipawa, Manitoba is such a great example of, look at the pork industry in Canada, real success stories in Japan and Asia. And it's because of that commitment to those markets, to high quality. Japan spends more on their food as a percentage of their discretionary market than any other, country in the world. We have this treaty that's reduced tariffs specifically for beef and made it more competitive, Canada going in there. Yet all we have is an office for Cargill and JBS in Tokyo that represents Brazil and the US. We need to put Canada first.
D'accord.
Okay. You also mentioned the emergency fund for processing, and you said there was no funding allocated for strategic investments. I think you're mentioning a need for at least getting that fund going.
I think so, and with a realistic timeline. The timeline was projects had to be completed by September 30th. So anything strategic takes time. So especially during a pandemic, it wasn't really realistic, the framework and the execution. I'm not complaining here because I think it's great that we have these programs in the first place. I'm just explaining the needs of my organization. I'm sure others to have this incubation of processing facilities, because if anything, if it isn't already built, it's even harder now. The lead time is longer. So we really need, because we're competing against other countries. When I have a call with Japan, I mean, I speak Japanese, these guys, we're competing against Australia, Brazil, the US. Why are we better? Why are we better? This is all hands on deck to increase our Canadian productivity.
Parfait, merci.
Great, thank you. Well, that's what we are there for. You can criticize us constructively. That's what we're here. Last question on standards. The reciprocity of standards. This is often mentioned as an inconvenience. There are beef processors, specifically from Quebec, that have talked about the ISP standard for cattle. First of all, I would like to hear you what you think about the reciprocity of norms. Do you think that these standards should be reviewed quickly, please?
Standards, you're saying?
La norme ESB pour la vache.
The ESB standard for mad cow.
Could look, certainly that's an issue that's deregulated in many markets. Yeah, I think it's, Canada's been impacted more than other countries for sure on that front. So I think opening deregulation is a good thing in that respect. But on standards, the bigger thing is growing the Canadian cattle herd again and keeping the cattle in Canada. 50% are trucking south. Why are we doing that? Why are we doing that? Let's build up processing capacity in Canada. It benefits all our Canadians.
Ouais.
Yes, that's true. Thank you so much. I'm not sure if I have any more time. Quickly, Mr. Sarsfield, you spoke about raising the foreign workers coming to 10%, but I think you have local labor. Is the 10% increase sufficient? Shouldn't we be aiming for 20%, maybe even up to 30%?
Yes, I would think that eventually we would want to be looking at probably upwards of 40% in total if our labor trends can continue the way that they have been the last 5-6 years.
Thank you, Mr. Sarsfield. Merci, Monsieur Perron.
Thank you, Mr. Perron.
Our MP that's closest to that Asian market, all the way from the Western Coast, Mr. McGregor, for 6 minutes. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, my riding is on Vancouver Island on the beautiful Pacific Coast. Mr. Sarsfield, maybe I'll start with you. I appreciate hearing about how your business has grown, and I've taken a look at the website. You've got some pretty awesome looking products there. Another part of the motion that's guiding our committee's current study is also looking at how the Government of Canada can basically identify opportunities and solutions with the goal of supporting capacity to protect food security. I was just wondering if you have any thoughts on that part of the motion that's guiding our study. Like, for example, how many apples does your company process each year, and how important is your business to apple farmers in Canada? And if you could just offer any thoughts to help our committee look at that particular aspect of the study.
Well, I guess two of our major constraints that we have, I guess labor was one that I highlighted. The other was our main product that we do produce would be fresh or frozen, mostly frozen baked apple pies that we sell to retail chain stores throughout Canada and the US. But mostly on the US side, it's heavy concentration, or the product that we're most competitive would be apple pie. So currently, we do produce more than what's grown here in Atlantic Canada. So at one point, we probably had about 95% of our local supply, even though that the overall production has increased in the province. It's probably down this year to closer to 70%, which we are bringing product in from Ontario and BC, and also a fair bit out of Washington State. So I guess that's one thing that we do longer term need as far as something to encourage more local production. I guess one of our bigger issues would be for the processing apples are typically can be only about a quarter of the purchase price of what some fresh apples would be. This region in Nova Scotia will probably have the strongest apple farmers as far as returns in all of North America, because we do an outstanding job growing the Honeycrisp apple, which has a premium price. So all the local farmers have converted their production to that Honeycrisp, which we actually take the imperfect apples out of that production, which there's typically on average around 20% of peelers that would come, and then the majority would be the fresh fruit. So that's really where we partnered with the packers and the growers to take that imperfect fruit, and it's kind of been a win-win for this local growing area, in the sense that we're giving them a decent price for the processors, and they're getting a premium price for majority of their crop. So going forward, it's just, in the past, the government has supported some planning programs for processing apples, and it is something that we may require down the road to help and develop that side of the industry where the economics for the growers just are not there.
Okay, thank you. And maybe Mr. Aiken, I can send the same question your way. I know you've been concentrating a lot of your efforts on exports, but do you have any thoughts on processing and how it relates to food security? I know, in the summer, just before Parliament started in September, I took a trip out to the Okanagan, and I was talking with some ranchers there who were talking about the struggles they were having when big processing plants had closed down, and how they really had to find innovative ways to really process beef locally for a local market. Do you have anything that you can offer to our committee to help us with this particular aspect of our study?
Well, I think you have to build a culture of innovation, as you alluded to. In our case, we were the first to commercialize the rinse and chill technology in Canada. We commercialized a fully automated organic and grass-fed ground beef brick line. We're looking at, I talked about the custom fabrication. It's about differentiation. And I think where the advantage of the smaller producers is it's more authentic. When you deal with someone at home who's smaller and in your community, and that's a real advantage that everyone processing locally in each province can bring to the table. And I want to see that encouraged.
And do you think that there is a little bit more of that encouragement now from COVID-19, given the experiences that we've had over the last 10 months?
I think absolutely it's encouraged, but I also want to explain that in the beef industry in particular, where it's so concentrated, I gave you the PlayStation example where there's loss leaders in beef. You need that global reach, because whether it's crown cut tongues or mountain chain tripe, if you can't sell the other parts of the animal at some kind of profitability factor, you're going to get killed by the two economies of scale packers. So the model won't work unless you have an anchor tenant that's providing the throughput and the basic economies to allow you to pursue the craft elements of a local authentic strategy.
Great. Okay. Thank you for that answer.
Thank you, Mr. McGregor. Right on time. So now we'll go with the five minutes round, and Mr. Steinley for 5 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. Steinley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And Jason, it's very good to see you again. I'll have my questions focused on our Saskatchewan plant out in Wolseley and what we can do to help make you guys as successful as possible. You talked about that validity of capital and how those are some of the major issues you're facing. I was also wondering, you touched on irrigation for a second, and having a large quantity of feed available. Is that something where would be obviously it's going to be beneficial, but you said that $4 billion investment in irrigation to increase our capacity, not only for yourself, but across the country. Is that something we're looking at? Irrigation infrastructure to play a vital role in making sure that we do have beef processing capacity increased across the country, and specifically in your situation?
Well, I think it's all about raising the productivity of the agriculture that you have and adding value to it. My interest is in regenerative agriculture, and agriculture is essentially, it's an indirect investment in water, and it's all about soil health. The most important technology we have for combating climate change is a cow grazing across grasslands, basically stimulating the soil. That's where I want to encourage it. And with that cycle of cattle, you essentially, the abattoir is a fundamental component of that life cycle. So far from creating there's a lot of climate discussion, but the same way a router is critical to the internet, an abattoir is critical to regenerative agriculture and its economic activity and raising the value of everything. That irrigation project is a long-term project for the benefit of Saskatchewan, and we need to make more investments in our long-term strategic objectives.
Thank you very much for that, Jason, and I couldn't agree with you more on our long-term objectives. I have a friend that produces a very interesting kind of beef. It's called snow beef. I don't know if my colleagues have heard about it on this committee, but the friend I grew up showing cattle with, and he's having a lot of problems with CFIA. Obviously, you are now CFIA approved, but could you talk about that process and how for Ian and for snow beef, which for everyone, it's a cross between Wagyu and Holstein. It's delicious, a little plug. But the process to get certified, that he can't sell his product outside of Saskatchewan right now, and he's having a really tough time with that. So can you just give us a little bit of the experience you had and how other smaller companies that are trying to get into the beef market, you might have a bit of a footprint, but obviously that is an issue with the red tape, interprovincial trade barriers, and some of those issues that smaller producers are facing trying to get into that market.
Well, absolutely. I can unpack a whole bunch of different things there, Warren. I mean, I love the idea of snow beef. Differentiation, it feeds back to the point. When I lived in Japan, I've walked through the Kobe beef slaughter plants in Guma, okay? And if you go into the carcass cooler, they actually let people in and video auction out the carcasses, flashlights looking at it, and then they take it off. Like, think of the Japanese fish market. It creates this high valued product. And I think we need to innovate and instill more of that. And that's where, whether it's snow beef or something else, creating something that is unique is going to gravitate attention. And I mean, I'm just trying to create a viable platform. So whether it's snow beef, grass-fed beef, something that's differentiated and special, gets valued and it gets to market. And that's what we want to do.
And just with the little bit of time I have left, I have about a minute left. Could you give me 2 examples of why it would be tougher to set up a small processing plant in Canada than other jurisdictions in the world right now. When you talked about depreciating assets and kind of a few of the tax changes that we saw, how do we make Saskatchewan, Canada more attractive to make sure that we have people that want to start up processing plants here?
I think it starts with there's so many it's a load. As someone who's lived this for like a decade, raising capital in kind of like, I'm an immigrant to the province of Saskatchewan in many ways. I lived outside of Canada for many years. You know, it's about basically the financial institutions in Canada are extremely risk averse. And, you know, we have to be in the US, you know, there's much more risk taken. We need to increase the risk appetite because if you don't take the risk, you don't get the massive rewards, and the rewards far outplay it. I mean, when we have a Shopify or whether we have a Canada, like these are companies that built incredible platforms. There has to be an understanding that there's going to be risk. Things can go wrong, and support through that.
Thank you,
very
Mr.
much,
Mr.
Jason.
Aiken. Thank you, Mr. Steinley. And to your snow beef, there was a report last week I watched on the French agriculture, La Semaine Verte, and it's really a unique product. Well, everybody wants a piece of it, I guess. So great example. Now, Mr. Lewis for 5 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. Lewis.
Just lost a minute right there. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that. And thank you to our witnesses. I understand. Thank you to our witnesses for being here. I would like to start my questions to Mr. Sarsfield for a very inviting story and compelling story about your company. I think it made everyone a bit hungry to describe the products that you have. And I personally would like to ask, because in my riding in Kitchener-Conestoga, in Ontario, we've got Wellesley brand apple products, which make apple butter and ciders and syrups, and also Martin's Family Fruit Farm, which is a processing plant with the juicing line. So it makes me realize how much that your staff, the way you describe your employees as family, and I can tell how much that means to you. Now, one of the things you mentioned was that your local staff was able to train to keep up with the tech and the automation that you had. So I wondered, because we talk about labor all the time, if you could expand on how you were able to have the training to have your staff keep up with the automation and the technology that you're bringing into your plant.
Well, I guess it's just we've got some key people that have stayed with the business from day one, so it's more working with each other and picking the key people in order to get the knowledge to handle to look after some of the new technology that comes our way. It's definitely can be challenging when you do lose some of those key people, because we do have a Michelin plant close by, and they can prey on us for labor for their facility as well, where we have similar, I guess, skill set for what we're both looking for.
And that kind of leads me to my next question about the skilled labor. Are there current labor trends or projected shortages that we can look out for? Because again, so much of processing capacity relies on human capital, on the people themselves. Are there specific trends that you see that we can look to build skills in people down the road?
Well, in most of our applications, we have hired technical people for certain positions, and then rely on them to cross-train others. It's still a major investment, and we have to make sure that they're looked after to keep them in place, that they don't move on. So it is an ongoing. I mean, overall with labor for manufacturing, it's becoming more and more difficult each year. But definitely do believe versus manual jobs that the technical jobs and paying higher wages is definitely the answer versus low wages and no automation.
Well, again, yes, supporting your workers seem to do that. But you did mention automation, and so what kind of encouragement can we give as a government? What can we do to help you? You have this situation where you're saying you're at capacity and you're looking to grow, but you need that investment. So for a company as successful as yours like that, how can we help you with advancing the technology you'll need to make that next step?
Well, I guess it's more like I mentioned before. It's just that continued support that we did have. I mean, we were able to take advantage of the latest funding that had mentioned the expiry of December 30th. I mean, we just came under the wire for a major a robotic palletizer, which was a $400,000 capital expenditure, and we were able to claim $100,000 federal grant money towards that, which that was basically why we did proceed with that project when we did. So I guess there's continued projects being available to us will give us the opportunity to keep investing in that automation.
Well, fantastic. I only have just maybe 30 seconds, but we just touched on the temporary farm workers. I didn't hear you mention if you use them, and if you had any advice, if you had what we could do to help streamline that process in the future.
Well, we're fairly new to the foreign workers. We actually just brought our first 9 people in from Mexico, and so they've been just at our production facility for about 4 weeks now. So far they've integrated with our local staff quite well. So I guess there was longer term the need to get that number up over the 10% because we see the trends going against local people working in these types of jobs.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm out of
Thank
time.
you, Mr. Lewis. Thank you, Mr. Right on time, and Mr. Sarfield. Et maintenant, Monsieur.
Mr. Perron, for 2.5 minutes. Go ahead. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would go back to Mr. Sarsfield. We went quickly over the percentage of labor. You're just talking about that. You're saying that you have been you've just started to hire foreign workers, and that this is a strong tendency. Going from 10 to 20%, I asked you earlier if that was sufficient, and I think you answered that you would prefer we go even higher. Well, right now you are not even at 10%, so do you really need these increases?
Our bigger challenge that we have right now, we actually have to provide them housing. So there's a shortage of housing in our area. So we're actually looking at building some housing in order to increase that amount. So as soon as we know that we can cover off the housing, we will be putting an application for at least another 25 persons into the program for this year in order for us to meet our sales commitments for this current year that we're in. And it's just like, as I mentioned before, it's the trending where we've seen over the last 4 years, and just whether COVID has, it's been trending this way even before COVID. So it's definitely had an impact on us in this time, but I don't expect it's going to be night and day once we get through this the current COVID issues that we're faced with.
So if you had improvements to make to the foreign worker program as you know it now, based on what you hire now, for example, giving them visas over a longer period of 3 years, renewable visas, so that you can have some predictability in terms of availability of the labor force, would such an initiative be useful to you?
Yeah, I guess the longer the term is, the better, because we're currently there is some very intelligent people within that group that we can train to do higher skilled jobs, and we've seen that even in this first 9 people that we put in the plant, that we would like to. Some of them have the ability to be team leads and so on, but under the current program, they're only allowed to stay here for 12 months. So
thank you.
The longer we can keep them, the better that the investment of training them.
Thank you, Mr. Sarfield. Thank you very much. Et maintenant, now, McGregor for 2.5 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. McGregor.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Sarsfield, with all of the automation upgrades that you've gone through with your business and plans for future Can you just give us a sense, and I guess you would know from maybe some industry associations and other processing plants, just kind of what skill sets are generally really the highest in demand right now to really solve this labor crunch? I mean, is it really sort of the technical aspects, having electricians, mechanics of some sort? I'm just wondering, you know, are there particular labor streams the federal government really needs to concentrate on? That's just a more of a sense that I'm trying to get from you.
But it does put higher demands on the maintenance side of our operation. So I mean, so far we've been fortunate. We have built a real good team of mechanics and programmers. But as we grow, we need more and more of them, and the local other manufacturers in this area are looking for the same people. It hasn't been an issue to us yet, but it's definitely going forward as we need more and more. There needs to be more and more training for that.
And with the temporary foreign workers stream, like are a lot of companies in your position starting to sort of see a lot returning year after year and establishing sort of those long-term relations with them? What I'm alluding to is the government's trying to establish sort of a pilot program for a pathway to citizenship. Is that something that you think would be useful to try and encourage those temporary foreign workers to put down some roots in communities like yours so that they become a part of a loyal workforce and part of the company going forward?
Yes, that's what we would like to see long term, would be that they actually would become part of the community long term. So definitely.
Okay, I'll leave it at that, Mr. Chair. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. McGregor. Thank you, Mr. Sarfield. So that's all the time we have today. I really want to thank the panel. I mean, you guys were awesome. I think you contributed greatly to our study, and thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. And now we'll break to get the new panel on, and so don't go too far. My colleagues will be right back. So thank you.
Thank you.
Suspended. a few comments for the benefits of the new witness. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize your name by name. When you are ready to speak, you can click on the microphone icon to activate your mic. A reminder that all comments should be addressed to the chair, and interpretation in this video conference will work very much like a regular committee meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either floor, English, or French.
So when you speak, do so clearly and slowly. When you don't have the floor, please mute your mic. Now let's welcome our witnesses.
Miss Margaret Lamb, President. Welcome, Miss Lamb, to our committee. And also Benny Company, Nicolas Filiatro, Vice
President, Finance and Administration. So welcome, Mr. Filiatro. So let's begin with your opening statements. You have 5.5 minutes each for your opening statement.
You got 7.5 minutes. Go ahead, Ms. Lamb, for 7.5 minutes to make your opening statement. Up to 7.5. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair Finnegan, Vice Chairs, members of the Standing Committee of Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, and other invitees. On behalf of Pork Nova Scotia, I would like to thank you for the invitation to address this committee in regards to processing capacity as it relates to pork production in Nova Scotia. I'm Margie Lamb. My late husband and I had a 150 sow fair to finish hog operation, which I'm in the process of selling through a shares agreement. In addition to growing grain and pigs in the late 1990s, we started processing added value products, selling at farm gate, then adding a wholesale and catering to our business. When my husband became ill, I took his place on the pork board and have since become the chair of the board and come to speak to you in that capacity today. Prior to Jim's death, the farm had transitioned many times through economic pressures in the industry. All producers face similar economic challenges presented by selling on an open market. The most challenging is prices, which are based on a U.S. hog price set weekly, often with large fluctuations, frequently below the cost of production. Compounded influences over the years from high grain and feed costs, high U.S. dollar, excess feed pork on the world market, disease challenges, and a loss of infrastructure led like feed mills and processing plants relocating, and for ourselves a barn fire caused many to exit. Without consistent and certain cash flow, the ability to borrow from banks, Farm Credit Canada, and farm loan boards are often restricted or denied. In the 1970s, pork production was encouraged by government, and the Feed Freight Assistance Program that was seen as a great help in sustaining the industry was discontinued July 1st of 1995. Over the years, Pork Nova Scotia saw the decline in the industry from 225 active farms with production levels of over 200,000 market hogs dwindle to where there are 8 commercial-sized producers credited with marketing 8,500 market hogs annually, of which 25% of those are shipped to Quebec for processing. The greatest decline in the industry happened between 2006 and 2009. 3 of the 8 producers shipped 55,000 to 60,000 isoweans to Quebec and Ontario farms to be grown, which is 98% of the piglets born in Nova Scotia. This almost collapsed this past summer due to COVID. In the 1990s, all commercial pigs were shipped through the marketing board. Most are shipped into the province to one of 4 facilities in Nova Scotia, which had an abattoir and further processing capacity. Presently, between 3 to 4% of the pork sold in Nova Scotia is locally grown. 97 to 98% of that is produced by one other producer and myself. Even at the peak of production, Nova Scotia only produced 65% of the pork we consumed, making it an importer of pork. Due to the nature of the hog industry, large processors who purchased plants in the region consolidated and moved their operations, while others closed their abattoir services. Federally inspected abattoir is necessary. It is not inexpensive. It is not initially profitable, but it is infrastructure that is crucial so that producers can increase supply and be profitable. There's neither been an appetite for long-term low-interest loans from banks, government agencies, or investment from related industry to support smaller federal inspected facilities to meet market-sized production. Presently, government programs look primarily at projections on a spreadsheet to determine the feasibility of a project. Do not misunderstand me. If something isn't going to work, one has to change. But if only financial projections are used to see into the future, they do not tell the whole story. If that were the case, my husband and I should have gone out of business 30 times in the last 30 years. What we did was we changed. We did not get bigger. Our hog numbers are smaller, while our employee numbers are 12 times greater. The provincial government has supported upgrades to provincial abattoirs, which has taken away some of the immediate and critical concerns of collapse. Worked the past 4 years on business and marketing plans to access funds for federally inspected abattoir while not jeopardizing present abattoirs, found that of the 22 Nova Scotia provincial abattoirs, 12 process red meat. Of those, all are mixed species, all have increased seasonal demand, and all facilities are at capacity. Presently, there's also 90 backyard facilities exist that work on a cash economy. Strategic investment and access to federal inspected abattoirs would stabilize, maintain, and grow our hog industry, allow access to diverse market opportunities, and build and support government policies and mandates. What do we have in the province and region to support federal abattoirs? Access to pigs. Producers who want to transition back to market animals and or increase their numbers. There are 8+ small to medium value-added processors. Of those, I am the only one processing and growing my own hogs. Most depend upon imported meat for processing, and there is a very strong buy local movement. Federal inspection is a must as it allows for exports, sales opportunities into existing processing facilities and large retailers, and sales access to government institutions. The environmental initiatives can be supported by having abattoirs located closer to production. The carbon footprint of pork in Nova Scotia and the Maritimes could be reduced. Less hogs exported. A round trip to Quebec consumes 800 liters of fuel, and there would be less meat imported back to meat processing and consumption. Lack and scarcity of food will cause citizens to panic. Here in Nova Scotia, the Tantamar Marsh is under increased threat of breaching. There is only one land crossing into the province for both rail and trucks to bring human food, animal feed, fuel, and goods. Presently, we have a maximum of 3 days food supply in the province. Eventually, added benefits from having these facilities would be increased food sovereignty, job creation, rural development, and it would meet the obligations in the food policy set September 26, 2017, point 4, which says it must support the next generation of farmers, promoting a diversity of farming practices and size, as well as to the right of food ratified in 1976. Animal welfare, as transport of animals, there would be less distance, means less stress on our livestock, better mitigation of correction for unforeseen circumstances such as storms, breakdowns, and the slowdown for checkpoints that we saw during COVID. Slower transport, shorter transport meets new animal care regulations. In conclusion, time has been running out for 20 years in my province. Family farms are not run by CEOs. They're run blood, sweat, and integrity. And the one thing 99% of farmers will do is that we will go to our grave to meet our obligations. Their farms are like your homes, not a place to work, but a place to live. Lastly, in my opinion, project study for years amounts to inaction and procrastination. Both are actions that result in huge expenditures. We have seen $500,000 of studies with no results. As leaders, some of the public will never agree with what you may do. For some of us and our families to come, your recommendations for support make all the difference. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lamb. Maintenant.
Now, Mr. Filiatro for up to 7.5 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. Filiatro. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the Standing Committee on Agriculture and Agri-Food, first of all, I would like to thank you for your invitation. I'm Nicolas Filiatro, Vice President, Finance and Administration of the Benny chain. I'm pleased to be here with you today during your study on the processing capacity. Before getting into the subject matter, let me introduce my company. We were founded in 1960. Benny & Co. is a third-generation family business. We have been able to carve a place in a very competitive industry by prioritizing a business model focused on local purchases. It's 100% owned by the family, and there are 1,800 people employed 36 are family members. Over the past 10 years, we have gone from 12 to 64 restaurants, 2 in Ontario, and there has been a 670% increase in turnover. Today, Benny & Co. sells over 10 million roast chicken meals a year. We buy 4 million kilograms of Quebec chicken. That's about 50,000 birds a week. We buy about 500,000 kilograms of chicken. That is processed 100% in Canada, and also 100,000 pork. So local supply is an integral part of business development. Since 2021, 85% of the products bought are from Quebec. So when you add to this figure Canadian products such as PI, potatoes, packaging in Canada represents 90% of total purchases of the chain. As I just mentioned, as a major purchaser of birds for the past 50 years, we're well placed to see the advantages and disadvantages in supply management. You would like to know that many chicken farmers, this model has several advantages because they can have a fair and constant price. Benny Co. believes in the principle of supply management should not extend to processing and abattoirs. Thanks to the volume of supply, there is an additional cost, especially for restaurants. In fact, the current management for quotas stifles innovation and traceability. Since the guaranteed volumes in 1994, Benny & Co. has seen major changes in the processing sector. When this measure was set up, it was meant to cover everything, all sizes. Unfortunately, several small abattoirs have shut their doors or were bought over by the major players in the industry in Quebec, and there is a monopoly of 95% of the market for poultry processing in Quebec. In these sort of monopoly situations, lack of competition on the market negatively impacts buyers, including Benny & Co. The supply volume system complicates access to quotas, and so it's almost impossible without legislative action and regulatory authorities intervening. Benny & Co. believes that it's important to have medium-sized abattoirs. By promoting a competitive system, we encourage innovation, but we also reduce the risk of breaking in the supply chain. Imagine that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, there are some major abattoirs in Quebec that are forced to reduce or stop their operations. This would have catastrophic effects on chicken buyers like Benny. Several times our supply team has had to work very hard to make sure that we can keep our rotisseries running. The absence of competition in the processing sector has also raised a significant issue for Benny. The issue of chicken traceability, being able to identify the origin of the bird is very important because we can assure quality. When the chicken comes to the processor, we lose the trace. The buyer cannot really know the origin of the bird. We know that the chicken bought is from Quebec, but there are some differences in terms of the feed and the methods of raising them. That has a significant impact on the quality sold to consumers. So we cannot believe that all suppliers in Quebec and Canada supply exactly the same quality. So for Benny & Co. and several similar companies, the progressive disappearance of the small and medium-sized abattoirs has led to a rupture with the raisers. So Benny & Co. had the possibility in the past of choosing its suppliers. So in the major abattoirs, we can ensure traceability, but that is an additional operational restriction, and that is not an option for them. In order to have good quality, Benny selects partners for buying lettuce and cabbage, for example. But it's important for chicken And as far as the issue of over-processing, there is a significant consolidation in the market. In this case, there is no barrier in entry, but with the vertical integration of the production chain, the same two major stakeholders have a significant market share. So this situation slows down innovation in a sector that has a lot of opportunity and with an increased demand in the market for restaurants and for retail. So Benico, to end, urges legislators to put in place measures to promote competitivity. We must stop protecting the major stakeholders that don't need any additional protection. We believe that this is how competition and innovation in the sector, in the processing sector, could grow. The Canadian supply chain for chicken will be strengthened and become more effective. So thank you for listening, and I'll be pleased to exchange with you over the next few minutes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Filiatro. So let's go to the round of questions.
For 6 minutes, go ahead, Mr. Epp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to both of the witnesses for your excellent testimony. Let me begin with Ms. Lamb. If I can ask, if I understood you correctly, you said that 65% of Nova Scotia's demand was met by the production, pork production in the province. Is the business case strong enough for the private sector to invest in additional processing capacity there to meet that domestic or provincial demand, or would you estimate that it would require ongoing public support to meet that?
So the 65% was when we had the 225 producers back when Maple Leaf still had the abattoir and facilities here, Larson's Packers. Right now, all we have in the province that we are processing is 3 to 4% of what we're consuming. So there is a need to have, the federal inspection just allows more access to sales that we can't access anymore. I mean, I have only like provincial inspection. We only have the provincial abattoirs. So we can't even put into like our larger chains, Sobeys or any of them. We sell basically like through our own retail and that. So the answer to your question is, I don't know whether we need it in order to grow.
In order to grow at the primary level. Thank you.
Right.
I'll redirect my questions now to Monsieur Filiatro. I said that correctly. I apologize. As I understand, let me begin with a basic question. You're sourcing directly most of your chicken. Across all of your sourcing, what percentage would you be sourcing directly from the manufacturer, and how much would you be sourcing through third-party agents such as food service providers, Gordon Food Service, or Cisco, or enterprises such as that?
In fact, 100% of our production, of our orders, are direct. Gordon, Piedmont, they only do the distribution of chicken, but we don't buy directly from Gordon. So 100% of our product is ordered directly from the abattoirs.
Products then that, and I guess what I'm getting at, we've heard a lot of testimony, for the need for a grocery retailer, a code of trade for the retailers. Your business model is different. I was wondering if you were buying a significant portion of your inputs through food service suppliers that might have some of the same dynamics as the retailers have in control into that marketplace. And I'm hearing no, is that correct?
Yes, exactly. Most of our products are bought directly. We have enough volume currently just to have them distributed by distributors, but I would say 95% of what we buy is purchased directly from the producers.
Thank you. Okay, then specifically to your sourcing model and your desire for more medium-sized processing, what specific changes in the supply managed sector would you think advantageous for the whole sector? And now we're getting to regulatory changes. What are the specific changes that would allow expanded processing capacity?
Bonne question.
It's a good question. I think it's more at the security or safety level. The total quantity is sufficient, but we notice that as soon as something comes up, currently we're running left and right. We have to call the second supplier that has to rush to supply us. And besides increasing the number of stakeholders, quite frankly, it's hard right now even to get outside the province because there is so much protectionist action. Now, going to Ontario to buy chicken, unless it's a really urgent situation, it's extremely hard. So having an increased number of stakeholders, that might be a solution, and it could offer some additional protection.
You mentioned the possibility of interprovincial trade or interprovincial suppliers for yourself. Are there any particular barriers that you've experienced that we should be aware of as a committee?
Comme je disais,
Well, as I was saying, on paper, it's possible. It's happened. We have been really tight in our production, so I had no choice but to call Maple Leafs in Ontario and call Grannies in Manitoba, for example. As soon as we say we're outside the province, it's very hard to have yes as an answer for supply from there. The issue I was talking about earlier, we had to go to the United States for supply. So our suppliers finally gave us the raw material, chicken, full, round, attached chicken. It's easier that way. Sorry, Mr. Filiatro.
6 minutes to go ahead, Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to both of our witnesses here today. I'll target my questions towards Ms. Lamb. Margie, it's great to see you. You spoke with so much passion during your opening remarks. I only have 6 minutes. I wish I had 6 hours because I think you have a lot to provide to this committee. But I want to start by trying to give some context to our members on this committee. You're certainly talking from a Nova Scotian perspective, but your story is probably conducive across Atlantic Canada in the sense that outside of Atlantic beef and some of the supply managed industries where there are processing, there's no federally inspected pork facility in Atlantic Canada, is there?
There is none, no.
Right.
At one point, there was a federal inspection in all provinces, all of the 3 provinces.
Right. Okay. And Mr. Epp asked you about the business case that needs to be made, and certainly you talked about the fact that at one time there certainly was. This was a big business, and there has been a transition over the last number of decades. You mentioned about the fact that banks are hesitant to want to loan. I know we've had conversations about Farm Credit Canada, and although they've been praised in other sessions where perhaps there's more security, you've had even difficulty with Farm Credit Canada being able to access enough leverage or credibility on the fiscal side to be able to move projects forward, correct?
So I'm going to say this about the hog industry. Because we're on an open market and because prices fluctuate so much, it can be dollars within 1 week. A lot of you just cannot say to a bank or any financial institution that I can guarantee to you that I am going to have $2 a pound for my pork from now for the next 6 years. It just doesn't happen. And because of all of the other things that have happened within the industry, first of all, myself and my operations manager, when the provincial abattoirs almost crashed 4 years ago after the death of my husband, that is when I went to the provincial government to see about trying to build a very small federal abattoir, saying, you know what, if we had money, we would not be here to ask. And why federal? So that we have provincial, but if you can't get into other market opportunities, then you're just investing in the same thing. And so this would allow other producers. I only process 40 hogs a week, 40 to 50 hogs a week. I couldn't sustain a federal abattoir. I need to be able to help support growing an industry. And I think you have to start from the ground and come up. We're rebuilding here. We aren't at capacity. We're not up here anymore. We have basically eliminated the industry. And now we're right back to where we were in the 70s of trying to just get some food security and trying to grow an industry here. So I think I got sidetracked.
No, that was certainly, and you know, I think for the benefit of everyone on this committee, for the analysts, it's about having the federally inspected abattoir to allow your producers to have more market opportunities. Because right now you're just sending ISO-wean pigs to larger producers, and then we're getting the finished product back, or
so that was part
processors
of,
are importing. Yeah.
So when the industry in the 2009 and then was having difficulty, there was funding put in, and I think I looked it up today. There's some. It was a federal program where you could either get out of business or you could transition to something. So some of the farms transitioned to iso-wean production. Some chose to get out of business. And at that point, our farm, Jim had already started transitioning into the direct marketing. So we couldn't access that funds, not that we should have had it. We were already transitioning. So that's when a lot of that production just left. The iso-wean producers, because of transportation, some of them want to stop having to transport animals. They are selling into farms that, in order to compete, have to increase or grow bigger. So they're building new barns, which means here either these iso-wean producers increase their sow herd, build new barns, and there's just not the money in that. So it's kind of a catch-22.
I hear you. And look, my final two questions, I'll pair them together. Is of course you work with Linda Best. She's a real champion through FarmWorks in Nova Scotia. Talk to me about what the government can do through its procurement methods. But we also have a budget coming up. So two things: is there ways that government, whether looking at procurement, obviously needing to be trade compliant, but looking at ways to support through the procurement power, along with our future budget on relaunching the economy? Are these temporary measures we can do to try to help in the long term?
So when you're talking about procurement, are you looking at what goes into institutions and that type of thing?
Certainly, I've heard a lot of that at the provincial level, but even federally, we have the Kentville Research Station and others, is allowing the federal government to have a food policy that allows more local procurement, something that can help benefit.
To get into those, it has to be federally inspected. So your hospitals, your prisons, and so on. So again, unless there's legislation that changes that, there needs to be, I think, a will at each province, not just here, but to ask to say to these institutions, you can buy locally a certain percentage. And we see that our provincial government has said that, earmarked so much, but I think that percentage needs to increase. So yes, there are things that can be done. I think, you know what, I look at all you've done over COVID, and when there has been a will and a need, there has been a way.
Thank you, Ms. Lam, on that. We'll move Monsieur Perron pour 6 minutes.
Mr. Perron, for 6 minutes. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank the witness for being here. I think you complete each other in terms of local processing. Mr. Filiatro, your business model is very interesting. You prioritize buying local and also proximity. You know, you're talking about concentration of processing that prevents you from having traceability and some quality control. That's a significant problem. What are some of the obstacles for abattoirs, for the small, medium-sized abattoirs? What really prevents creating such businesses? What can the federal government do? Currently, the guaranteed supply volumes are limited to two major stakeholders on the market currently. So if tomorrow morning I want to come up with an abattoir, we would have such low guaranteed volumes of supply that it would be impossible to make them profitable, comparable to what Ms. Lam was saying, well, it's a different problem, but there is a connection. And so that's the source of the problem. We cannot have a chicken producer that doesn't have these limits, so it would be difficult to make any profits. It will take too long to legally increase my volumes to make my operations profitable. So the market is virtually closed from that angle. Now, concentration. No one can really make these major abattoirs disappear. Everybody knows that it can be a problem. We've seen this during the COVID era. What can we do to slow down this trend when you have these kinds of acquisitions? Well, it's a difficult question. They're so big that I was dealing with an abattoir a few years ago, and they provided us traceability. It was easy, excellent service, excellent delivery. When they knew we had access to traceability, the abattoir was bought up. A few weeks later, it collapsed, and the production was transferred to their current location. So what should we do? I think in terms of guaranteed supply volumes, that's the starting point. If we remove that guarantee, there are some stakeholders currently in the industry that would like to build an abattoir. So regulation should be modified on that. Now, financial support. Ms. Lam also mentioned that issue. Now, Ms. Lam, when you say it's not only maintaining the financial statements, you could have declared bankruptcy several times. You didn't do so because you organized. Can the state intervene to promote the appearance of processing plants, small and medium-sized plants that can complete or meet the needs of Benny, for example? These are legitimate needs, and probably your needs also. Basically, well, it shouldn't cost the government money. It could simply be guarantees. Would that be possible, Ms. Lam?
One of the things that when we have gone to government to speak to them, being a grandmother, I do not want to see my grandchildren saddled with debt. And my thought was always that we need long-term low-interest loans in order to personally take this on, because when I look at, you know what, I think out of need, out of crisis, sometimes is where the passion comes to try to solve these problems. And it is with that crisis and passion that I went to look at this possibility. And everything that it's come to is the unfortunate part about an abattoir.
Oui, pardon.
Yeah, sorry, Ms. Lam. We have limited time. I understand that it would meet a need if there was a guarantee or some financial assistance that could allow you to spread these debts over a longer period. Mr. Filiatro, is this something, has this problem been around for a long time? If I understand you, the abattoir you were dealing with, is that a recent change? No, it's been several years. I think it's about 5 years since then. We're very concentrated with the major producers now. So for the past 5 years, have you had discussions with different levels of government on this, or is it the first time that you are expressing these concerns? Well, I've had some discussions with different levels of interest. I have had discussions, yes, with the Restaurants Canada. I'm a manager of I'm one of the managers. Now, it's difficult to have new players in processing. Everybody around here wishes that, but it can be done overnight to ensure the traceability you mentioned. Isn't it possible with your current processors to achieve what you want? It seems like a very legitimate demand. Quickly, Mr. Filiatro. Yes, that's exactly what I said. I think Mr. Davis came by this week. Thank you, Mr. Filiatro. Thank you, Mr. Perron.
Yes, go ahead, Mr.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Maybe Ms. Lam, I'll start with you, and I'd like to echo Mr. Blois's comments. Thank you for your testimony, your opening statement. I think you've certainly painted a pretty daunting picture for anyone who's considering being an entrepreneur in the pork industry. Just the variety of price swings that you have to deal with as an industry, and you've already outlined some of the big concerns you have. You were talking a lot about the cash flow problem that you have, and while we don't have much influence that we can wield over private financial institutions, I wanted to talk about maybe Farm Credit Canada. Are there any recommendations you have for like what we could present to the government? You talked a little bit about the long-term loans. Anything further you wanted to add in detail on that front?
I don't think directly to farm loan. I know through Canada, Canadian Pork Council, we have asked for government to work with agencies and that to have a made in Canada pricing, so that it would look at pricing all across Canada for all pork producers, regardless of province. And also one of the other things is to look at zoning that may not affect pricing unless there was a crisis, but it would eliminate some of the concern with a shutdown in exports, like through a disease like BSE did with cattle. So those things I think at federal government, and certainly with farm credit and that, letting them have a more open mind to, for abattoirs, the first part is never going to be profitable, but the abattoir is a means to the added value. Without the abattoir, we can't get down the other part of the road.
Absolutely. Yeah, our previous witness was talking about, he was from Northern Natural Processing in Saskatchewan, and he listed the three barriers: funding, critical mass, and market power. And so, yes, the upfront capital costs are quite significant, but they are that avenue to allow people to make more money further on down the road. You mentioned something just about the food supply in Nova Scotia. I come from the other part of the country. I'm on Vancouver Island, so we're very aware of being on an island. We're dependent on BC ferries for many of our supplies, and we have a similar outlook on food supply on Vancouver Island. Part of our study is to also examine the goal of increasing local capacity to protect food security. And you did make mention of that. Is there anything you wanted to expand on that particular point, just to aid us with that part of our study?
I just think your openness to look at small, I'm going to say directed investments that regionally, and that we can work together collaboratively to get as much food security in here as we can. And I think it's just, some of it will be, can we work together as a region? The others, because one of New Brunswick thinks we need a call sow processing because of all the isolene producers we have. So I don't think we need, like, I know that the small facility that we're looking at that would look at 200 to 400 animals slaughtered a week would be from $2.8 to $3.2 million. To do a 2,500 a week, you're looking at 9 to 12 million. So, I mean, when we first started, we even started looking at bringing in a mobile unit to make it stationary, and that was out of the States. And you're still looking at $1 million with even smaller capacity. So, yeah. As I said, yeah,
pretty significant. And are you aware of programs like the Local Food Infrastructure Fund? Is that something that you'd like to see more of in the road ahead, like providing that kind of capital? Because we've heard of projects being funded where someone establishes a community kitchen that allows several farmers to use it at the same time in some kind of a cooperative model. They're then going from just raw processed vegetables to something that's value added. Any value in funds like that as well?
It certainly is, and I think Linda Best, as Cody will attest to, started work with Farm Works, and they've invested capital into businesses such as even mine, where we bought a slicer, like a $32,000 used piece of equipment. So even funding where you can have used equipment and not always have to invest in brand new, so that it's more accessible to small processors and small businesses.
Great. Thank you so much. And maybe Monsieur Filiatro, I'll just use my last minute. We've had a number of witnesses talk about the impacts of labor on their ability to increase processing capacity. In the short time I have left, do you have anything to add on that front on how it's impacted your business?
Well, for our business, yes, it is a challenge. If you're talking about the process, so I'm not too sure what the question, it's a generalized challenge. We have to reinvent ourselves. We have to come up with new ways of doing things. But currently, there's a bit of stability on the market. Thank you, Mr. Filiatro.
5-minute round, and we'll start. On va commencer avec Monsieur Lehoux.
So let's start with Mr. Lehoux for 5 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. Lehoux. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank our two witnesses for joining us this afternoon. I see we have two productions. We have production and processing. One for chicken. For processing, you have similar problems for both businesses. It's the issue of concentration of processing. So how do we come up with a solution, a viable solution for processing? I understand that regulation does play a significant role because for Ms. Lam, first of all, in terms of the smaller abattoirs with more provincial level regulations, it's different. You can't really get out of that by moving to other Canadian provinces. Is there a means outside of the Federal Food Inspection Agency? Could they come up with recommendations to allow transfers from one province to the other, or at least within the country? Ms. Lam first.
Part is I can transport a live animal anywhere across Canada. So as far as taking that out, I can do that. You just can't transport a dead animal across borders without federal inspection. I mean, so we need to bring meat in. So for our project, it would be more about how do we get some sustainability within our own province and our region by being able to access some of the markets that we actually have here. So I don't know if that answers what you were asking.
Yes, it seems to answer my question, but we do realize that there is a problem within the regulation that ties provinces and or provincial regulation and the federal regulation. I'm just trying to see how we can work. You said you can transport live animals from one end of the country to another, but you cannot transport carcasses. And to me, I don't understand that. So there is an issue of regulation. There is some adaptation that has to be done, right?
I have no answer for you, my dear. We've been shaking our heads at it for a long time.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Ms. Lamp. We will continue the quest for the right answer. Now, Mr. Filiatro, you have also experienced this. You've tried to go out of the province to get products, and you've had difficulties. Was it regulation that was the obstacle, or was it just an issue of supply? I think it's a combination of the two. And regulations, it's quite difficult. So what do you really want to say, Mr. Filiatro? You're saying that there is over-regulation sometimes? Yes, if you're a major processor, my product is very specific in nature. We have to understand that it's full chicken, high quality. that is tied a certain way, we have to take that into account. So it's not different sizes of chicken. Now, in terms of traceability, that's an issue I believe is important. Is it a decision of the processors? I think it's doable. It's just that they don't want to do it right now. Yes, that's what I believe too. I think it's only an issue of the will to do it. As I said, I've already had that. So for a major processor, they should be able to do traceability. Well, yeah, because if there is an illness in some birds, they will. I can guarantee you that they will find the source somewhere. So, and when you're talking of funding for small abattoirs, maybe this is some support that the federal government could maybe bring in some more flexibility to allowing these businesses to take off. We had similar questions earlier, funding and also simply the production capacity, the volume that we have the right to buy. Because there are issues where you get suppliers because they have guaranteed volumes in those abattoirs. Thank you, Mr. Leou and Mr. Filiatro. Mr. Dron for 5 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. Dron. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to thank Mr. Filiatro and Ms. Lam for being here with us. Maybe I should start with you, Mr. Filiatro. You spoke. I would like to understand the dynamic. Why do you prefer more abattoirs within the territory instead of dealing with slaughter plants? You mentioned earlier, I think, that small abattoirs are in greater proximity to the producers. Is that the only dynamic in play? Yes, there is that. There is also a safety matter. My business is based entirely on that supply. So there are higher risk when you have fewer stakeholders. We saw that with COVID. Someone said some centers shut down for 3 weeks. That presents great challenges for our supply team. Yes, it's easy to work with. It's much easier to work with someone that's within greater proximity. And even in your sector, we know that the whole issue of labor, so you would have to work with the provinces, even if the funding is there, the capital is there. We do have to find that labor to come to our abattoirs. In my area, I've seen several abattoirs shut down, not because we really wanted to, but because there was no succession. There was no one to carry on the business. Did you see the same phenomenon with some of your former suppliers? Yes, labor is an issue for everyone. But I think there are ways to innovate. I've visited some processing plants outside the country that are much more advanced. They require a much less labor. So I think it's an issue of investment and innovation also. Yes, obviously, when you're looking at dairy production on farms, and people don't really do it by hand. You have robotics that are milking cows. So in terms of automation, do you think that could play a significant role in our economy, especially in your field? Yes, certainly. I think that's a pathway. It's obvious that some jobs draw fewer and fewer workers, and the situation is not going to improve. Nobody is going to go to look for 2,000 people to work in an abattoir in the countryside. So it will be difficult to fill these positions. We have to take these changes into account. It's not always the business model that is funded on foreign labor, even if it's a need right now. But we should have a strategy for the next 5-10 years. We cannot always rely on our foreign temporary workers, they're important, but you said we must have innovation. Other countries are much more advanced in these areas than us. And I'll go back a little. You spoke about COVID. We have companies that have shut down. This is why we're doing this study. That is, the COVID risk bonus did not exist before that. But before your relation with Colymil, before COVID-19, with the major abattoirs, were things running smoothly? No, I can't say that I don't have a good relation with them. These are partners in any case. We are just a small part of their production. The relationship is good. It's hard to get orders from a business of such a size. So the issue of traceability, I think, is a matter of will. When there are certain changes to be made to the product, it takes time. It's just part of the game. I'm not saying they don't collaborate with us at all. They do their job, which is to slaughter the birds. Thank you.
Certainly feel, being from Ontario, I can certainly feel the Nova Scotian love coming from from you. We feel it through Cody once in a while too. I want to go back to way at the beginning. You've mentioned value-added processing, and I'm just trying to understand what you meant by that. I mean, was it further processing for hogs, or was it a specific kind of processing that you were looking for back in Nova Scotia?
So that was referring to our business.
Yeah.
So we just were growing hogs at one point that went into an abattoir, and they did the further processing and selling. So we started selling a side of pork on a Saturday morning. We started doing hams and then bacon. After I retired from teaching around 15 years ago, we built a larger facility. We now make hams, bacons. We do fully cooked products. We've done all kinds of sausages. We have a hot dog that we call a Jimmy dog that was made to meet a school nutrition program. There's no fillers or anything in our product, no MSGs and all those good things. So we have probably about 200 SKUs of product. So
thank you.
We grow the pork and we process it. We just don't have an abattoir.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
On this one, colleagues, I'm not 100% sure. My timer stopped, but I think you got your 5 minutes. I don't know if anyone else timed on this one, but I think it was close. Unless I hear otherwise, we'll move on. Apologize for that. Okay, so Monsieur Perron.
Mr. Perron, for 2.5 minutes. Go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Filiatro, let's carry on. I would like to hear what you have to say about the advantages, the logistic advantages of buying local. This proximity purchasing, this model you're talking about. What's the competitive advantage you gain from that as a business? Quickly, please. Yes, it does provide some security. That's important. I just transferred lettuce that was coming from California. It's now produced in Mirabel. So I can have that 365 days, even at -20. That's proximity. So we make sure that there are no losses related to transport. There's a product that's prepared for us. The packaging is done for us. So there are several advantages. And the advantage, you would have liked to have a processor. You would have liked to have access to other processors. We're talking about you, but we could mention other medium and small-sized groups. Do you think that if the federal government placed conditions to promote, with Madame Lam, we talked about long-term, low-interest loans, do you think some stakeholders would like to, people like you might want to get into integration? Yes, we've had that as a point of interest for a long time. We're trying to do this with partners. As we said, 95% of our supplies are local and obtained directly with a family or a business. Yes, certainly we would like to have greater integration, more vertical integration, if that was possible. So people would be interested in that. My last question, I don't have much time, let's go quickly. In terms of the interprovincial barriers, when you needed to get supplies from elsewhere, you said in the end you were forced to go to the United States. That's a sad statement. What's the problem? What has to change? Several stakeholders have mentioned this issue of the difficulty of trade, of interprovincial trade. Well, technically, it's not a rule, it's not a regulation. I can't really see I should be able to get supplies elsewhere within the country. Why can't I do that? Unfortunately, I'm not really a processing expert, but I have personally a few years spent, I've made several calls, dozens of calls, just to ask for import quotas. Thank you, Mr. Filiatro. Thank you, Mr. Perron.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Lam, you were mentioning to my colleague, Mr. Drouin, about the value-added products, the range of products that you produce. I'm just wondering, have you been impacted at all? We've had a lot of discussion lately about the code of conduct of major retailers and the concentration of power in the marketplace. Have you had any negative interactions with retailers, like with the hidden fees that are given to processors about where they can place their products, and any kind of
Make sure it's Adam, though.
things like that? Any experiences?
I'm going to say that I have not, because I'm only provincially inspected. I don't get into the large retailers where that is one of their criteria for getting on their shelves.
So even provincially within just the Nova Scotia chains, it's been okay? That hasn't impacted you?
We haven't been, we aren't in the Sobeys and that. We would be like in Pete's Fruitique, and we actually go and just sell directly to them. And so we've been great. They've been great to work with.
Okay. And then I guess I don't have much time. Can you talk a little bit about just the impacts of COVID on your operations, and what that's going to look like going forward?
Okay, so I'm going to talk on two things. Number one, as our farm, and because we direct market, we have not been impacted like I have for people who are the isoine producers. The isoine producers who are shipping into Quebec, those farms got backed up because they couldn't go into processors. And so we were looking at having to eradicate piglets, and our government and that, and everyone kind of worked really together. But what happened was the price for those isoine producers dropped from their contracted price of $40 to a cash price of $5 to $7 a piglet. So they really suffered, and it looked like that part was going to actually put them under.
Wow. Okay. Okay. I think I'll leave it there. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. McGregor, Ms. Lam. So,
Mr. Chair, point of order.
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Philippoy.
Just for the benefit of everyone on this committee, Mr. Joanne was talking to Ms. Lam about her products, and she mentioned ham. It's famous in Nova Scotia for the Margie Lamb ham. So I think after the pandemic, we should all come down to Nova Scotia and we can have some Margie Lamb ham.
Actually, it's Jimmy Lamb ham.
Oh, Jimmy Lamb ham. Sorry about that. Okay, we'll go down.
Yes, we're lambs that grow pigs.
So yeah, great. For a point of order, everybody order your Jimmy Lamb. Jimmy Ham. Get this right. Thanks to our panel, a wonderful discussion. Thank you so much for taking the time, and to all our colleagues, MP, and to our support staff. This was almost a perfect meeting. I appreciate everything you've done.
Merci.
Et on vous verra la semaine prochaine.
Monsieur le Président,
So, I just want to raise a point, Chair. Could I order Benny chicken? I just want to congratulate you for the translation, which was great. I just want to make sure, well, there was an echo in the background. I'm not sure if I was the only one having that. I just wanted to point that out to the technical team. Maybe you are not aware, maybe you are aware, but if you just look at what caused that, although we could still hear. Okay, I noticed that, Mr. Perron. The technical team will look into that. So see you next week. Thank you. Have a good week.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank
you.
you.